We're living in the final part of the last days, undoubtedly, the final part of the final part of the last days. This is the end of the world. This is the end of the world.
Hello and welcome to the Last Days live stream, the show that brings welcome levity to the end of the world, lifting the spirits of many of you battling boredom, loneliness, or anxiety by infecting as many as possible with comfort and distraction, hopefully, as the apocalypse unfolds. How are we all? 102, 103 currently watching. Let me know. Do let me know in the comments whereabouts you're from. Let me know whether the sound and video are okay. It's a little bit hit or miss sometimes when it comes to the settings with the live streams, but hopefully I can be heard. I'm actually just going to pause for a moment just to see confirmation come through on the live chat. Everything sounds good, says Eric. That's good. Cat D says, "You sound and look great." Oh, you're going to make me blush, Kat. Thank you so much for all of the comments and indeed super chats, super stickers. Devon Phoenix, a habitual supporter of the channel with super stickers, and also Gavin Mark. The Last Days live stream is my favorite show. Gosh, wow. Well, that is a big compliment, and we'll certainly try and live up to such high praise. Eric Larson says, "Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final part of the Last Days." Yes, it's important to distinguish the fact that it's not just the final part of the Last Days, it's the final part of the final part of the Last Days. Lots of comments coming through. The numbers are also rising as well. Currently 139 watching across Facebook and YouTube. Brand new patron here, Lloyd. Oh, fantastic. So excited. I've been out for a year. These Saturday live streams are fantastic with my morning coffee. Much love from Connecticut. Well, that's fantastic. I mean, we obviously do a morning live stream that's intended, I suppose, more for Europe, and this is the morning live stream for America. The morning live stream for Europe that we do on Wednesday is also the evening live stream for Australia. So this basically is the America live stream of the two scheduled slots. And I will just let you all know, by the way, before we get into the show, the next show, the Wednesday show, will not exist. I'm going to have to miss it. I have a good reason, though. It's our wedding anniversary. So my family life has to come first, I'm afraid. We won't be around on Wednesday, but we will be back on this slot the following Saturday. Let me just scroll through. Thank you, Arthur, for prepping people that I would be a little bit late. I have started this one a little bit behind schedule. I do apologize. It's more to do with, well, frankly, I've got my work cut out with the rebuttal for the Friday morning of the convention. So I was doing my editing and I had to decide on when to pause with the editing and when to do the prep for the Last Days quiz. And I didn't quite calculate that properly. So I've been finding my questions for the Last Days quiz just before coming on air. So lots and lots of comments. Let me just see if I can highlight a couple more before we go to the reading. Yeah, Gabrielle Spedding says, "Wow, the bookshelf." I actually spent a little bit of time reorienting the bunker for the convention rebuttals. I figured the convention rebuttals are among my most watched videos if you look at the content that I put out in the space of a year. Usually it's the convention rebuttals that get absolutely hammered in terms of views. And I thought this is probably a good opportunity for me to reach out really to a new set of Jehovah's Witnesses who will be watching my videos for the first time. And wouldn't it be nice if their first taste of apostasy, of YouTube apostasy, is with the bookshelves behind me, as was the case in some of my earlier convention rebuttals. So I've gone back to basics, you could say, but I've still got my desk, so it's still a little bit easier to just be comfortable while I'm recording. And yes, let's see here. Okay, it looks like we're about ready. Rianne says, I'm happy to be with you all. Lovely to see you with us, Rianne. A regular there in the live chat. So yes, what we'll do, I think, Claire Nolette, don't give us Americans our own live stream. We're a bunch of selfish, infectious people who refuse to wear masks. Now, that's not true of all Americans, is it, Claire? I'm sure that doesn't apply to you. So let's go to our reading, shall we, as we wait for the green room to fill. Currently, it's just Arthur in there. Hello, Arthur. It's so nice to be able to see Arthur's smiling face in the green room and talk to him without him having any possibility of saying anything back in reply. He can't say anything triggering. He's just there floating in the ether, unable to trigger me in any way, shape, or form. Life's good, viewers. Life is good. So we're reading Take Back Your Life, Recovering from Cults and Abusive Relationships by Janja Lalich and Madeline Tobias. We have been reading all about fear and how to protect oneself from undue fear on exiting a harmful group or abusive relationship. We're now dealing with anger. How do we deal with anger? When I'm angry at Arthur, I hit the mute button. But there isn't always a mute button, is there, when you're exiting a cult? The emergence of anger is one of the first signs of recovery. Anger is a normal reaction to the hurts and assaults you experienced. Anger is an appropriate response to abuse and exploitation. It is also the most difficult emotion for many of us to get in touch with and address. If you feel angry, it means you are now ready to acknowledge that you were victimized, which can be incredibly painful. What was done may have been hurtful, harmful, and even heinous, and you are entitled to your rage. Just as fear is the backbone of cultic control, anger is the fuel of recovery. Anger is an extremely valuable tool in healing. It fortifies your sense of what is right by condemning the wrong that was done to you. It gives you the energy and will to get through the ordeal of getting your life back together. Suppression of anger while in the cult more than likely contributed to depression and a sense of helplessness. Now the reverse is possible. Anger can be a double-edged sword, however. It can motivate healing or be turned inward against the self. Some people find it easier to blame themselves than to use their anger in a positive way to make necessary life changes. Self-blame or anger turned inward can result in alcohol or drug use, physical illness, or emotional disorders, including depression or suicidal thoughts and behaviors. Also, anger can be wrongly directed at innocent others. If anger is expressed inappropriately or unconsciously, it can increase a person's isolation. To be used effectively, anger must be focused on its source. In most cases, that source will be the cult leader and perhaps his top lieutenants or enforcers. Many former cult members use poetry as one means of expressing their anger. Rebecca Bruce, a former member of a political cult that is still quite active, wrote the following poem. It speaks for itself. We're having an early Sasha's Poetry Corner, aren't we? Anger rising. I can feel the anger rising. I am healing now, so that I can fight, and am strong and whole again. One step at a time, I began to feel alive, blowing cultic restraints wide open, breathing newfound freedom. I can see clearly now, deceived at the highest level, betrayed by my very own comrades. It was all lies, lies, lies. Promises of being on the vanguard edge, changing the world like no other, committed to building a voice for the people. Lies, lies, lies. I gave you my all. You used and abused me. Now I take back my life. I leave you like dust in the wind. I move forward into the light. New opportunities abound all around me. I will fight all the way and am in control of my destiny. I will fight to free those in your bonds. I will fight to keep others from your grasp. I will fight till you are gone. I will fight you to the end. Rebecca now works as a clinical social worker in a primary care clinic. She speaks out about cults and works with people affected by cults. Her poem illustrates the kind of raw anger many former members feel. This anger is better expressed in such productive ways as this, rather than being bottled up and turned into depression or suicidal tendencies. Remember, your anger may be difficult for family, friends, and sometimes even therapists to accept. You may be urged to forgive and forget. Former members who were brought up to hide or deny negative feelings may not have the tools or experience to know how to express this potentially healing emotion. Former cult members need to realize that what was done to them was wrong, writes Michael Lagone. They must be allowed, encouraged even, to express appropriate moral outrage. The outrage will not magically eliminate the abuse and its effects, nor will it necessarily bring the victimizer to justice, but it will enable victims to assert their inner worth and their sense of right and wrong by condemning the evil done to them. Moral outrage fortifies good against formidable evil. Even implicitly denying victims' need to express moral outrage shifts the blame from victimizers to victims. Perhaps that is why so many victims are disturbed by detached therapists or objective scientific researchers. They interpret the detachment or objectivity as implicit blaming of themselves. I have been reading from chapter 9 of Take Back Your Life, Recovering from Cults and Abusive Relationships. Isn't that very applicable to the experience that we have when we escape from cults? I've long been saying on my channel that anger is normal. There's nothing unusual about being angry at being lied to and exploited by a group. It's not a question of whether you're angry. It's a question of what you are going to do with the anger. How are you going to channel it? Are you going to turn a negative into a positive? So it's lovely to see all of that expressed far more intelligently and credibly than I probably could by the authors of that splendid book. Please do check it out if you can. Let me just read some reactions to that, actually. Leisha Fox says, agreed. I couldn't believe the time I spent spreading this lie to others too. Rianne says, being pissed off really helped me getting out and staying out, but it should never intoxicate relationships to others and yourself. Renato says, looking back, I'm really happy I never got to study with someone. Yeah, it's important to find the positives, isn't it? Anger comes from our very first tormentors. That's true, Mark Weatherall. Ruben, I've just arrived. What's he reading? Take Back Your Life. That book there. I will move on to another book eventually. In fact, that's probably something that I can put to the audience. What book should I read? Because I don't, for copyright reasons more than anything, I don't want the show to just turn into an audio book of this particular book. So let me know your recommendations for, healing books about recovery, or that would be helpful for managing, stress and anxiety in these times. Donna Bain says, excellent point. It took me a long time to believe I even had the right to feel anger, let alone express the feeling. Really worth the watch, says Steve Thu. But be warned, possible triggering. It does deal with abuse in the JW cult. I think Steve is referring to an earlier... he's referring to the Witnesses documentary. I was talking to Trey Bundy on the phone the other day. I'm not going to tell you what I was talking about, but it was nice to catch up. He's a really decent guy. I'm angry Lloyd started the live stream 3 minutes too late. I do apologize. I was tardy today, it must be said. So yes, lots of comments coming through. John Cypress, anger is a weapon and people are entitled to their feelings. Jehovah's Witnesses don't get this. So thank you so much for that reaction. It's time to bring in, I see he's a little bit, are you ready, Arthur, to join me? Okay. How are you?
Hey, I'm very well, thank you. Hello to all of our viewers.
Indeed. Do you get angry, Arthur? I haven't seen you angry yet.
I do get angry sometimes, and when I'm, but usually I process all my anger in the inside until it boils, and then it explodes, and then it's getting really, really unmanageable and it's unforeseeable actually what reaction I have when I get really, really angry.
A bit like a Romanian volcano.
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, that's a spectacle I hope to never see.
Hungarian lava underneath.
I don't even want to think about what you're referring to in this metaphor as Hungarian lava. We are joined, however, at this very opportune moment by Mr. Mark O'Donnell.
Ooh.
Long time no see, Lloyd.
Greetings, Brother
Do you
Redwood.
get angry, Mark?
What's that, Lloyd?
Do you ever get angry? I can probably only think of like a handful of occasions when I've seen you get riled, but I wouldn't say necessarily angry.
From lack of Danish.
Lack of Danish.
Yeah.
Being done over by an Airbnb host. Probably one or two other occasions too, but
yeah, I think we were all equally upset about what happened to us in London. For those that don't know that story, oh boy, we wound up at an Airbnb that was I guess we had driven clear across England, from Wales to England, had gone down and settled on a nice dinner with a bunch of friends. And then we were expecting to pull into our Airbnb and everything was going to be ready for us. We had been communicating with our host the entire time. Kimmy had set it up, I think, and we were communicating. And then at the last minute we get there and the host says, "Oh, I'm sorry, the house is wrecked. Whoever was there before us, they had some crazy party and they smashed bottles everywhere and there was filth everywhere and we can't give this to you. But we can give you this condo in downtown London." And that started the nightmare. And
yeah, they
boy,
put it to us as though it was a luxury condo, and so we were pinching ourselves, thinking, "Oh, that's all right. We're going to be staying in this kind of penthouse suite." And
it was
we
late too, right?
It was very late. There wasn't an option to go anywhere else, really.
And we had Jessica, who was very young at the time.
We had a baby with us, and there was some kind of hole in the window. Bear in mind, it was a high rise, so the cold air was gushing through, and it was the middle of winter,
and it was filthy.
It was filthy. There were wet towels hanging around it, and we figured out it had very clearly only been vacated a few minutes before we got there. By whoever was living there.
3 mattresses in the main room that were just sitting out on the floor, like an entire family had just moved out of this condo. Oh my goodness, that was
and it's the close.
misery.
It's probably the most angry I've seen you.
And you.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone was happy that night.
No,
I really, yeah.
It was a low, but we prevailed in the end. We're still here to tell the tale.
Yeah, we are.
We didn't turn into a Romanian volcano. As
it went from this beautiful place we stayed in Wales that was, and I think you've probably talked about this before about how much you love Wales, and it was sort of a getaway when you were a kid, right? You went on hiking and camping trips in Wales, and we both got to enjoy just the once they had upgraded our Airbnb in Wales, and it was just beautiful on a farm, and it was just the nicest place and bigger house than we expected. We got to go to Portmeirion, Penrhyn Dudrath, and the prisoner village that I'm such a fan of. So I was fanboying that, and we had a great time. And that was Christmas time, so Jessica got to enjoy the train and the Santa Claus, and we were right on the water, of course. So we're right on that body of water that Portmeirion sits on.
Which takes us back to what someone said earlier, which is to always focus on the positives as much as you can.
Yes, indeed.
And we now focus on another O'Donnell who joins us.
Team O'Donnell is here.
Do you have any pets to dangle? Both of mine are
dangling pets.
This is Dora.
Yeah, so if anyone is watching this for YouTube review purposes, you will note that this is a video predominantly about cats.
Something to say?
And only incidentally about serious.
Right. She's rarely on camera, so you usually see her sister.
Dora is the bedroom cat. She's a real affectionate nighttime bedroom cat. You wouldn't know it from the way she's acting now, but she's got very specific tastes.
We have to shut our cat in the bathroom at night.
There's a key.
Because otherwise there's a very high risk of it either waking me up and I need my sleep, or even worse, waking up the children. So we have to put it in the bathroom where the litter tray is. I don't know whether you have any hot tips for that situation.
Well, the cats do grow up.
Well, one thing they suggest, Lloyd, is that 10 minutes of dedicated play at night before bed.
Yeah.
And then that usually helps get their energy out.
I'll try to play with the cat in a very dedicated way for at least 10 minutes.
Yeah.
In future.
And definitely, if the cat's like waking you up because it's hungry, if it does the 5 a.m. wake up and you feed it, then it's going to keep doing it incessantly. So, kind of don't give in to.
And how do you discipline a cat? Because I, until recently, was down to my very last Apple charger. And I've recently managed to get hold of a newer one. And it's one of those maglock ones, the older ones.
Yeah.
And it just, anything that's remotely cable-ish, it will just try to destroy. So how do you... Okay.
Yeah, so cats do not respond to negative reinforcement. They'll get scared of you. So, they respond to positive reinforcement. So if they're doing something you don't want them to do, remove them from that, give them something else, and then give them positive feedback, like, good job or whatever. So
which is basically how I try to treat Arthur. So you're saying treat the cat the way I treat Arthur.
Yes, but kittens want to chew, Lloyd. So
does Arthur frequently.
Right. So if kittens are chewing your apple, if the kitten's chewing your apple charger, give it something else.
Okay.
And then tell it good, be very positive. But if you yell at it or spray it with water or whatever, the cat's just going to end up being scared of people. They don't respond to negative reinforcement, positive reinforcement.
If Arthur were here, I would give it Arthur to chew.
Good job, Arthur. We're so proud of you. So good, not cheating. Way to not look up those lyrics during the quiz.
Now listen, I've been thinking about this whole cheating thing, and I've come up with a solution. There's really no reason why you can't be blindfolded when you're doing the quiz, is there? So can we all have you blindfolded for the quiz?
Yeah, Arthur will find a way. He'll wear some sort of, Oculus.
Well, that's why I'm catching him on the hop rather than giving him many, many days to come up with some kind of sophisticated mirror trickery. So
mirror trickery.
So yeah, anyway, that's for later in the show. In the meantime, we do have at least one. I don't know whether you have any limericks to share with us, Kimmy.
I don't, not yet.
I have some. I have.
No, you've already got your segment. In fact, you have two segments if we count the quiz. So
he's up to something. You see his little face?
He's already thinking, I'm blindfolded.
It was probably a triggering limerick too.
Without further ado,
I think you need your own channel, Arthur.
I've been telling him this for ages. I think
there's got to be an audience for his weirdness.
I think he just has designs on mine, to be honest. But in any case, let's go to Sing Along with Arthur.
Viewers, and welcome to the July 11th installment of Sing Along with Arthur.
He's even giving the dates now. Have you noticed?
What's so special about this day? Do we have anything special to rejoice about?
I'm sure you're going to tell us.
Of course there is. We are encouraged to always rejoice, aren't we? Especially starting this weekend when the governing body has provided us with the first session of the 2020 Regional Convention and arranged that all congregations around the world may feast on this spiritual delicacy, including us, who might choose to watch the rebuttal presented by our very own Brother Cedars on this channel very soon. Today's sing-along is an expression of gratitude towards the faithful slave. And because it's Saturday morning in the United States, I would like us to remember an animated series broadcast on both Nickelodeon in the 80s and Cartoon Network in the 90s, titled Les Mondes Engloutis.
I'm starting to take notes. I don't know about you.
Spartacus and the Sun Beneath the Sea, a highly acclaimed French show. One of the many interesting bits about this cartoon is that the soundtrack was written by a Romanian-born, well-known musician, Vladimir Cosma. And in the next 3 minutes, his very own La Danse des Pirates becomes La Danse du Collège Central.
Now we have that awkward moment where we have to get everything lined up. Bear with us a moment.
Alrighty, let's play. I am Stephen Lett, joining from the south, with a rubber face and an elastic mouth. Tony Morris here came from Bottle King. Here is my Magellan and a pinky ring. Hello, I'm David Splain and I want to teach how to do the math while you're out to preach. Come on, all your friends, and sing along. The governing body has a new song. We are Jesus' self-appointed slave, telling you always how to behave. You must obey us from cradle to grave. Whoa-ho-ho, whoa-ho-ho. While we often the teachings adjust, you'd better grant us your absolute trust. Heeding our advice is always a must. Whoa-ho-ho, whoa-ho-ho. Greetings, you brothers, I'm Samuel Hurd. I know I am old, but I want to be heard. Jeff Jackson, the Aussie, joining in late, making sure the accuracy of what we translate. Servus, I am Gerrit Bruder Lösch aus Wien, one of the best liars that you've ever seen. There's also Mark Sanderson and Kenneth Cook. In manipulating witnesses, we play by the book. We are Jesus' self-appointed slave, telling you always how to behave. You must obey us from cradle to grave. Whoa, whoa, whoa. While we often the teaching suggest, you better grant us your absolute trust. Heeding our advice is always a must. Whoa, whoa. Join us, zealous witnesses, the kingdom to preach. People of all nations undoubtedly reach. Bind them effectively to laws and regulations, unitedly applied in all congregations. They ought to willingly surrender their lives and await the moment when Jesus arrives. Because we are living the very last of days, the light is getting brighter, you're feeling its rays. We are Jesus, self-appointed slave, telling you always how to behave. You must obey us from cradle to grave. Whoa, whoa. While we often the teaching suggest, you better grant us your absolute trust. Heeding our advice is always a must. Whoa, whoa. We are Jesus' self-appointed slave, telling you always how to behave. You must obey us from cradle to grave. Whoa, whoa. Phew.
Wow, fantastic. That was a very, very spirited performance.
Very spirited.
There was, I don't know what you think, Mark. I like to focus on your reactions because I know you take music incredibly seriously. There were lyrics there, and there was singing. Surely we can agree on that.
I like Arthur, and I like he's got a fun way of looking at life. And yes, I do like music. We just never talk about it. So what can I say? I mean, look, I give the guy A+ for his spirit and for coming up with those lyrics and for rewriting songs. Just brilliant, Arthur. We love you.
Nil Dreams says amazing lyrics. Kimmy, one or two noticing that there was a lack of air instruments. I mean, arguably this was electronic music, but maybe Arthur could have done, the occasional air keyboard.
Yeah, I have to deduct like 2 points for that.
Oh,
yeah, but all I know is cradle to grave is going to be stuck in my head the rest of the day.
Have you got a pen because you're writing a limerick?
Maybe, yeah.
Excellent stuff. So, Arthur.
Yes.
That was a good performance. Thank you for your hard work. Clearly, a lot of work went into the lyrics, and we appreciate it here on the Last Days live stream.
It's a sign of the times.
No one's been. I was going to say no one's been giving any points, but there have been some points. 666 points from Finland.
Not 607.
Yeah, well, we have had that as well. Well, Arthur, I give you 587 on 607 points.
I gave him 1,914 points.
Okay.
25-20.
Fair enough. So, Kimmy, I know that you are quite fast with your limericks. Do you need a bit more time? Should we do the quiz first?
Yeah, I need a minute or two. So we can do the quiz first. I'll work on it.
Right. Well, crumbs. How do we do?
We're missing our Australian friends.
Yeah, we are. Well, what we can do is we can have Team Arthur Arthur Knights versus Team O'Donnell. But I am serious about the blindfolds. So do you guys need some time to fish out something that you can put over your eyes?
Or you can just trust that we don't cheat.
Well, that doesn't seem to be working.
Did something happen Wednesday? Did something happen that I'm not aware of?
Arthur, did you cheat again?
Oh boy!
No, I didn't Google.
Okay,
what did you do?
He didn't Google. He just looked at the live chat. Anyway,
I wasn't looking at the live chat either.
But to eliminate the possibility of looking at either the live chat or Google, I just
okay. Look, let's put it this way. Arthur is disadvantaged because he doesn't have his Australian team behind him. So we're willing, because he's handicapped. So we're willing to give him, if he can get away with cheating, without us seeing it, then we'll take on Arthur. And we're not cheating.
Without singing it?
We'll take on Arthur, no blindfold. And if we can get away with cheating...
I think Mark doesn't want to be blindfolded, Lloyd, is what he's saying.
Oh, I don't even think I have.
When you're answering the questions, eyes on the webcam, hands where we can see them, and you need to give me your verbal assurance that you don't have the live chat in front of you at the moment. Is that okay?
Oh, that's how it happened. It was the live chat.
Oh, there you go.
So someone was feeding
because I put a lot of work into this quiz.
Right, the one week you could actually see Arthur he was reading the screen like this.
The quiz is my child, and I pour lots of time and emotion into crafting the questions. In fact, we're going to have to go without an entire round on this particular show because I ran out of time because I was doing.
You just gave me an idea, Lloyd. So we could have some way of having sort of a global team quiz where, you might have Team O'Donnell and Arthur's Knights, but, half of us have like a coalition of people that are on the live stream that can, it's sort of a phone a friend thing. They can help us out.
No, because they've all got access to Google. So we have to eliminate the live chat entirely. And it's purely down to, it's a battle of minds. And before we actually go into all of this, perhaps I should roll the intro, which I will now seamlessly do.
As one brother put it, stay alive to 75.
Welcome to the last day's quiz, the ultimate battle of minds. As two teams of today's panelists face off against each other with absolutely no cheating whatsoever to prove their knowledge of this show and Jehovah's Witness Doomsday Dogma. I say this show, we're not going to have on this particular quiz the round about previous shows' quotes. So we're doing without that.
Although I did take the time to look up who was on the Wednesday show, so I knew that.
I love the fact that other people are taking it seriously and not just me. So we'll launch straight into our first round. They wouldn't write that. It's one question each, 5 points for a correct answer. And I've done it a little bit differently this time. Both questions will be, each question, all of the quotes for each question will be supposedly from a single publication. Okay, so I'm not going around in the history. Oh, we need to do the coin toss first, and I don't have.
Mark, you have a coin.
Here we go.
Okay, so Arthur, what do you want to have, heads or tails?
Do you want Queen Elizabeth on the front, or do you want the $2 on the back? This is an Australian $2 coin.
Heads. That's Queen.
You want heads? Yeah.
All right, let's do this again.
You never know what you're going to get on this show. It's happening live.
Okay. All right, let's try this again. Fumble fingers. It is heads.
Heads.
So Arthur's going first. The coin toss is an important element of this very craftily devised show because it establishes randomness of questions to prove that I haven't selected questions depending on the person. So Arthur, you're going first. You need to tell me which of these three quotes cannot be found in a book that predates the Watchtower Online Library. The New World, 1942. Okay. So I'm going to read three quotes. You tell me what's not in there. Quote number 1. The creation of the heavens was first. Unmeasured time before man's creation, the invisible ruler of the universe created and surrounded himself with heavenly creatures and caused these spirit creatures to move through the universe in the obedient performance of his commands. That's quote number 1. Quote number 2. As disclosed in the following chapters of the book of Job and in the physical facts of our day, the prophetic experiences of Job have been fulfilled upon this remnant from and after AD 1914. The year 1937 is marked as the year when all power of religion over them was broken, also the year 1938, when the theocratic arrangement was restored in their midst. That's quote number 2. And quote number 3, though Adam took responsibility as spiritual head, Eve's indignity was even more apparent since she made herself an instrument of Satan's wicked deception. So which of those 3 quotes is not in the 1942 book, The New World?
I guess it's quote number 3.
Are you sure about that, Arthur?
I'm pretty positive.
Arthur, you are correct. You have secured for yourself and for your knights who aren't with you today.
They are on the live chat.
They're not allowed to be your knights if they're on the live chat. This is the whole anyway.
You don't have the live chat up, Arthur, right?
No, I don't. But
you know the rules, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Good. We move on to.
But I have my fans there who are rooting for me, so
well,
I'm not alone.
You don't need to tell us.
Arthur, he's got fans now.
You don't need to tell us that you have fans. I'm on the receiving end of all of the comments. Go Team Arthur. Team O'Donnell, you're up next. Which of these quotes cannot be found in the 1939 book Salvation by Joseph Rutherford?
Joey Rutherford.
Quote number 1. We make these facts clear, to wit, that all who flock under the banner of the theocracy can look forward to bounteous promises soon to be realized under Christ's kingdom rule. Quote number 2. To follow religionists who thus deny God's word, therefore, means that all who do remain under the condemnation that came upon them by inheritance and are subjects of God's wrath. Quote number 3. This is further and strong proof that the clergy who resort to such schemes are haranguing the people and charging God with bringing calamities upon them represent the devil and do not represent God. Which of those quotes have I written?
Well, if you wrote either 2 or 3, then you would have done well by using words like haranguing and what was the other one in quote 2?
Yeah, but the first quote, it was like the word wit, which sounds like a word they would use in the 30s. I was going to go with 3, but saying Lloyd wrote.
Could you
3.
read the first one again?
We make these facts clear, to wit, that all who flock under the banner of the theocracy can look forward to bounteous promises soon to be realized under Christ's kingdom rule.
Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, I think Lloyd knows that they use that to wit phrase all the time, and he may have said, that's a good one. I'll get him on that one because he uses the to wit phrase.
Well,
what do you think?
We don't have to overthink. You can just choose if you wish.
Do you want to flip a coin? No, I think it's, A or C.
I was saying Lloyd wrote C.
Okay, real quick. One more time C, and then we'll make our final answer.
Because he won't defer to me, Lloyd.
Say what you will about that, but he never makes me reread the question.
Yeah. Well, that's because he cheats. He doesn't have to.
Further and strong proof that the clergy who resort to such schemes of haranguing the people and charging God with bringing calamities upon them represent the devil and do not represent God.
I don't know, but 3 is so crazy that maybe it wasn't Rutherford wrote that.
I think they used haranguing and I don't know. I get this feeling like Lloyd wanted to use the to wit in the first quote, and I feel like he wrote that one.
Go ahead, say that. We'll go with A. Lloyd wrote A.
It's only 2 points, right?
5 points.
So
Yeah, but our
5.
self-esteem is not tied up in the results of this game like Arthur. So
Okay. All right. So I'm sticking my neck out. We're going to go with A. Bum, bum, bum.
Is that your final answer?
Oh, Lord. No, read all 3 again, Lloyd.
you started it.
You're right. It is the first one that I made up.
I
Yeah,
knew-
I guess wit is a British thing.
No, Rutherford used, well, they
Rutherford
used that
did
in their
say that a lot.
speeches.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I knew Lloyd wanted to insert that.
At least he didn't throw in an evidently.
I didn't know that, but
To wit to woo. We move on to Songs of Doom. Now, in the past, I've omitted this particular round on the basis that Arthur doesn't have the same background with the book Sing Praises to Jehovah as the rest of us do, but he does seem to be answering questions with the confidence of someone who does. So we will therefore proceed with this round anyway. I don't have the questions in front of me. I'm literally just going to pluck them from the book. So it's 3 questions each, 2 points for each answered correctly, and answers can be forfeited if you don't know to the next team. Complete the lyric from a Kingdom song.
is this for Arthur?
Sorry, this
Yeah,
is for Arthur.
Arthur,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. Men make gods of wood and stone. Eyes on the webcam.
I know this one.
Eyes
Arthur.
on the webcam. Eyes on the webcam.
His hand is moving.
Pass.
Okay. Team O'Donnell. Men make gods of wood and stone.
But the true God they've not known.
Yeah, there you go.
Correct. You've got yourself. You've snatched. You've plucked 2 points from Arthur's Knights there.
That's an insidious song. We are Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
If you're a witness and you don't know that song, then you were never a witness.
Okay, so we stay with Team O'Donnell. Complete the lyric. Jehovah, our Father in heaven.
Oh, this is a most sacred night.
Correct.
Was nice in 14
Oh,
when his glory
Glory
was seen. His justice, truth, wisdom, and might.
Oh, good grief.
Don't I get bonus points for that?
He's in a mood today.
So, Team O'Donnell is currently on 7 points. Arthur's Knights trailing with only 5 points, but they have an opportunity to answer the next question. Complete the lyric.
Let's see your hands, Arthur.
And eyes.
Yeah, close your eyes, Arthur.
Lloyd wants him to look directly into his webcam.
Complete the lyric, Mr. Weber, looking squarely at the webcam.
See your hands.
Then let's go forth. Bravely press on.
I got it.
What are you? Swear it.
Eyes
Close your eyes. You're reading something.
eyes moving around a bit there.
Advancing truths. How was it? Shit.
Read it again, Lloyd.
Then let's go forth. Bravely press on. Eyes
Advancing
on-
truth, be our light. Something. How was it? I don't
Yes,
remember
that's
that.
correct.
You got
That's
it.
correct, Arthur.
Oh, really?
Good
Oh,
job.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got yourself 2 points. We move on to Team O'Donnell.
And an honest 2 points there, Arthur. How's that feel?
yeah.
Well, you didn't hear them sung in English, right? You heard them
No.
sung in Romanian.
In Romanian, yeah.
So it's very hard to you would have to translate to get it right, and I'm sure it's not always the same.
Exactly.
I was going to say it probably doesn't translate always back.
Yeah,
right?
that was really good.
They don't translate the songs word for word.
Tim O'Donnell, complete the lyric. I can sing it if you need me to. Forward going, preach the kingdom message ever far and wide.
Go ahead, sing it, Lloyd, just because your fans want to hear that.
Forward going, preach the kingdom message ever far and wide.
On Jehovah's side, something on Jehovah's side, Mark.
Mm-hmm. So what was it? Forward going, preach the kingdom message
Ever far and wide.
Is it forward again? Forward moving.
Forward moving. Forward moving. Something on Jehovah's side. That's all you're getting out of me, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm heading a blank on that. Forward going, preach the kingdom message ever far and wide.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the first two words? Was it forward going or forward moving?
So
forward moving from Lloyd.
The lyric that you need to finish is forward going, preach the kingdom message ever far and wide.
Okay, forward.
It's a slightly long lyric, so I'll help you out a little bit. You're correct in saying that it begins forward moving.
Right. Forward moving. Something.
Keeping ever loyal
on Jehovah's side.
Correct. That's 2 points. So we move on to Arthur's Knights.
Hands up, Arthur.
One more question each.
Better close your eyes, mister.
The Knights. He's praying now. He's got Satan on his side.
Sorry, I'm trying to find one that's that I haven't had in previous previous shows. It's actually quite refreshing how many pages I'm landing on, thinking I don't know how that goes.
It's great.
Determined in this time of
the
end.
You've got gems like
right. Okay.
Call.
Arthur Weber, with eyes on the webcam or closed. Closed is preferable. Be glad, you nations, with his people. I can sing it if you need me to.
Song 15?
14.
14.
Be glad, you nations, with his people.
Arthur.
I am impressed that he's keeping his eyes closed. That is fantastic. Oh,
he's reading something.
Opening them now.
One hand down there on the mouse. He's swirling around.
Sideways look.
How hard is it to keep your hands on your face and close your eyes, Arthur?
Sideways look.
Look at him.
Can you sing it once more, please?
Be glad, you nations, with his people.
God's kingdom is at hand.
Correct. So you get your 2 points there, and we move on to Team O'Donnell.
Side note, that song, I met the brother who wrote that song. He was...
Really?
I met him 30 years ago in Idaho. His name was Carl Parks, and my friend Bill, we were traveling across the country, and then we went to Australia and all over. So he wanted to introduce me to Carl because he was in his upper 90s at that time, and he was one of these longtime Bible students and loyal witnesses. And he said, he pulls out the songbook, and it was that song 14, not 15, and said, "Is this the one?" And we were sitting next to him at the meeting in Boise, Idaho. And he said, yeah. And this brother was real humble, and, he didn't want to acknowledge it. But Bill had grown up in Boise, Idaho, and he had always known Brother Parks. And he knew that he was involved in writing some of the lyrics to some of the songs. So what's interesting about that song, now that song is not in the new songbook. That was finally deleted.
They ditched loads of
Right.
really memorable songs for the new songbook, didn't they? Yeah.
But
And then they
go into
changed
your
the
old
lyrics.
songbooks, Lloyd, because you've got, so the one before that is the pink book, okay, from the 60s. No, if you'll notice, go in there. And by the way, do you know how they organize songs in that songbook? If you open it up, the beginning lyric is how they organized it. It's all alphabetical. So that's why Be Glad You Nations is one of the early songs, because it starts with a B.
Okay.
So they're all alphabetical. Now, if you'll see Be Glad Your Nations in that. Now that songbook has 119 songs in it. Then if you take the one before that, from what, the I forget what year, 40s or early, maybe 50, 51. There's one song.
It's on the shelf somewhere. I just don't.
Right. So Be Glad You Nations is in that book also. So he's got that song in at least 3 songbooks. But I don't think in the one before that, which might have been some songbook from 1928.
Anyway, Team O'Donnell, thank you for stalling for time so I could find you a question.
You're quite welcome.
Complete the lyric.
Finish the lyric.
Flee to God's kingdom, the hope of mankind.
Firm for his rule, take your stand.
Correct. Team O'Donnell, you have done a clean sweep of the questions there and even got an extra 2 points after Arthur yielded early on. So you finish our second of 3 rounds in today's quiz with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 points. Whereas Arthur is on 9 points.
I'm not watching any comments. You're probably watching them, Lloyd. I'm just curious how people getting that? Like, is it really triggering for people in the comments?
That's
with
an
these
interesting
songs?
question. Gosh, I've missed a super chat. Thank you, Lip Locked No More, for your very kind super chat. Lip Locked is known to the JWsurvey team from and has recently disassociated. So lovely to see you there in the comments.
And I'll give a shout out. She sent me I'll wear it next Saturday. She sent me a nice shirt. Says comma Slayer, in relation to me helping you with your book and looking for comma errors.
Yeah, Debbie Oliver says, "Whoa, trigger."
Yeah.
I think most people are just checking on whether
Arthur's cheating,
basically. I think people are finding it interesting. I find it fascinating. I think it's interesting that these messages are able to embed themselves in our brain, just because of being repetitively sung week after week after week with a catchy tune. And we're able, years and years later, to still remember the words, even though we're not singing the songs. Okay. So we can say goodbye to that round and we can move into the final round, which is Apocalypse Delayed. You need to tell me in which year this doomsday quote was printed in Watchtower Publications. And we start with Arthur. And Arthur, again, as usual, hands where we can see them. Eyes either closed is preferable, or fixed on the webcam. Shifty looks to the side will be met with suspicion. So, in what year was this said? According to the fulfillment of Bible prophecy, we now live in the final part of the last days of this ungodly system of things. Was this printed in 1999, 2018, or 1984? A sideways look. Your mic's gone quiet, mate.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
2018.
Hang on. Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Okay. Incorrect. It was 1999.
Ooh.
So we move on to Team O'Donnell. It could have been said again in any year.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of this
To be
part
fair,
of the quiz.
yeah.
It was the Awake 1999, February 8th. Team O'Donnell. In what year was this printed? They are not taught to pray for the continuation of this present devilish world that will soon pass away at Armageddon. Was that printed in 1972, 1956, or 1988?
I don't think they used devilish in 1988, so it's one of the older ones. What do you think, Kimmy?
72, I was thinking maybe. But you clearly don't agree, so.
Oh no,
Okay.
I mean, it's possible that they were still using that term devilish in 72, although we've been burned before, and it turns out to be a quote from the 50s. We got burned on that, I think, last week.
So may I pull a mark and ask you to read it again?
Yeah. They are not taught to pray for the continuation of this present devilish world that will soon pass away at Armageddon.
Maybe the 50s mark. Are you there?
Yeah. I'm just kind of thinking. I'm looking at the sky right now. Maybe the sky will give me an answer in the clouds.
You're expecting the clouds to form the number that you need.
Yeah, I was kind of visualizing that statement in my head. So I think that's good, Kimmy. So we'll go with the 50, whatever.
Is that your final answer?
It's our second to last answer.
We're only going to change it if we're wrong. So.
Yeah, we're if it were wrong, we get a do-over.
You don't need to change it because it's correct. You get 10 points. It was indeed 1956.
It's very
specifically
devilish.
The August 1st article. Nice to know that back in 1956, the devilish world will soon pass away. We move back to Arthur's Knights. Arthur's Knights currently trailing by 9 points to 23 points. Things could still conceivably swing in your favor, Mr. Webber, if you get the next one right. Because it's worth 10 points. Arthur Webber of Romania, known to store up his anger in volcano form. In what year was this printed? We are living in the final part of the last days, and as true Christians, we are struggling to survive these critical times hard to deal with. Was this printed in 1962, 2010, or 1996?
Is this a repeat of quote you said earlier?
Nope. They all are quite similar, but they are different. Yeah.
We are living. Read it again a bit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Arthur wants these 10 points badly. We are living in the final part of the last days, and as true Christians, we are struggling to survive these critical times hard to deal with. Was this printed in 1962, 2010, or 1996?
It's a wild guess. 1996.
Is that your final answer?
Maybe. Yes, it's my final answer.
In that case, you've got yourself your 10 points.
Whew.
You're now on 19 points. You have still lost, haven't you? Because Team O'Donnell's on 23.
Yeah.
I apologize. I was my maths was awful for that, but well done on amassing 19 points.
Yeah, that was good.
Very respectful total to finish on. Team O'Donnell can add 10 points to their already sizable 23-point haul by answering the following question correct. In what year was the following printed? The flood cleansed the earth, even as Armageddon will in the near future. Was this printed in 1992, 2015, or 1951?
I'm thinking 2015, Mark. Jehovah's Day.
Okay. The flood cleansed the earth, even as Armageddon will in the near future.
Yeah.
Flood cleansed the earth. And what were the years again?
1992, 2015.
Or 1951.
I'm sorry, the two recent years were, what was it, 92 and?
2015.
1992, 2015, and 1951.
You think of one of the two more recent ones?
I was thinking 2015, but go with your whatever you want.
Flood cleanse the earth, even as Armageddon will in the near future. I'm trying to think if they would have said that in 2015.
And go with 92. We've won anyways, so.
Well, we want a clean sweep.
So competitive, isn't he, Mr. O'Donnell? Now you'll see what I have to put up with working with him on the JWsurvey team. He takes no prisoners.
Paralysis by analysis.
I'm going to have to press you, Mr. O'Donnell. 1992, 2015, or 1951? Which is it?
I think that I think I should let, because I'm overthinking, and I think I should let Kimmy make the
2015.
decision.
Kimmy O'Donnell, is that your final answer?
It is. It is. It's probably wrong, but it is.
It is wrong. It
92.
was actually 1951.
1951. Wow.
We're back in the 1950s.
Yeah, they love killing people. They've
So
been talking about that for decades.
that was the Watchtower of 1951, July 15th. They really do enjoy the prospect of people dying. And for decades have been saying pretty much the same thing about this being the end of the world and Armageddon, etc. Obviously, as with all last days quizzes, there is a winner, there is a loser.
And there's a penalty.
And there's a penalty. So,
And there's a limerick.
So, Team O'Donnell, you need to... Limerick comes later to lighten the mood.
It's a joke.
And to help Mr. Weber commiserate.
I think we should have Arthur eat crow. Oh, wait, he's eating it right now.
Smack talk.
Enjoy that crow. Is it tasty?
Penalties is number 1, wearing a head covering for the rest of the show. Number 2, reading Jeremiah 5, 7, and 8. Or number 3, singing the postlude from Song 62 from Sing Praises to Jehovah. Which do you want Arthur to do?
Oh, these are the same.
You know, I'm going to let Arthur sing this week. I say, let's let him sing, Mark.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't think I could stand. It's a punishment for me to see him in a head covering. So.
How happy are the merciful, in God's eyes truly beautiful.
Wonderful.
It was wonderful, Arthur.
Moved us all to tears there. Thank you for being such a good sport. And yes, that was a very good quiz.
It was fun. It was fun. My friends were saying Mark was being too triggering because he knew all the songs.
Yeah.
I had that pink songbook embedded in my head throughout my entire childhood from 1967 to 84 when the new one came out. I think it was 84.
Saying JW indoctrination is complete here. Need more deprogramming. Mind control says Mark is so savage. He is.
The Romanian version got out in 1991.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
No, sir. Could you imagine going to Mark's house and playing board games?
Is that BORED board games?
Can you read me that card again? Yeah. Lots of comments. Mind Control says, Arthur, you did great. Hold your head up. Arthur, are you holding your head up? Excellent.
He's eating crow.
And he's eating his crow, yeah. Yeah, so that was a good quiz. Thank you. And Mark, big reaction to yesterday's Watchtower in Focus.
Are you saying we got a big reaction?
We did get a big reaction. We got lots of views for it. I wasn't expecting it, to be honest, but it's how many views is it on now? Over 7,000 views, is it? Or thereabouts? Coming up to 7,000 views.
Yeah. So it's not something that most witnesses will ever hear about, but to know that their beloved religion over in Switzerland is suing a writer or an activist who wrote a report about Jehovah's Witnesses, and she did use the C word, the cult word, and that got the German-speaking witness population in Germany and Switzerland very upset, and they decided to criminally sue her for libel. And what I learned that I didn't know yesterday from speaking to our friend, is it Udo?
Yeah,
our German friend said that if they had found her guilty of libel, then she would have had a criminal record. And here is someone who is basically saying the same things that you and I say on JWsurvey.
Yeah,
and she's being sued for it by Watchtower.
Isn't it disturbing how the law changes from one country to the other, so that there are these huge consequences for libel?
I wonder, are these rules enforceable for the whole European Union or just for Germany and or Switzerland, Austria?
I think it's more of a German thing, yeah.
Well, yeah, we also discussed yesterday Misha Anuk's book. So Misha Anuk wrote a book called Goodbye Jehovah. I guess it was maybe around 6 years ago, I think, 2014. So he's a German guy, I think, living in Austria now. He's a very good friend of the show, very brilliant guy, and he wrote a book about his life as a Jehovah's Witness, and he put in a lot of, this guy's really brilliant. He really is truly, a multilingual, very brilliant guy that knows how to write, and he got it
on the show, was on the channel and had an interview with Lloyd.
And he got it published by Rallo Publishing, which is a very prestigious German publishing company. Watchtower Germany got so upset about it that they sued the publisher. And we wrote an article about it on JWsurvey. I think it was called Goodbye Jehovah, Hello Courtroom. And so the results just came out this year, I believe. And I read Misha Anuk's statement. But basically, Watchtower lost. And all of the facts that he put in the book that Watchtower did not want in the book were allowed to remain in the book. And the only changes that were made were extremely minor changes. So Watchtower is pretty upset about that. So here you have, they're suing this woman in Switzerland. They've sued the publisher of Goodbye Jehovah. So where is the freedom of speech? And I think we asked Udo this question yesterday about why is this happening in Germany? I mean, Germany is, I think the number of witnesses is going down. You have a very educated, or for the most part, educated population where, very, very civilized country that's losing members of the Jehovah's Witness faith. And yet here we have these lawsuits that have gone forward against people who were critical of the witness religion. And
of course, I was thinking about this as well, because Germany and Switzerland and Austria and a few other countries are under the control of the Celtas branch, the Central European branch,
which is in Germany. So
this will be their legal department, won't it? The same legal department that went after Misha will be the one that went after Regina. And what's interesting, I'd love to know whether Shane Brady was involved. I was doing some research for my rebuttal to the convention, and his face popped up on my search results when I was looking for something completely different. And I didn't realize that he actually did a short interview, Shane Brady. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
He did a short interview with Mark Sanderson, and it would have been a few years ago now. And at the time, I would have had no reason to kind of pause more on what he was saying. I can remember at the time saying something along the lines of, well, he's talking about getting favorable verdicts in countries that have a deference to religion. Why is this anything remarkable, sort of thing? But yeah, he has this full interview, and it seems that he and Mark Sanderson are pals with each other as well. They worked together at the Canada branch for a while. So
there's a lot of history there. You know, for those that aren't familiar with the legal history, I mean, obviously we have some attorneys in the U.S. that have been fighting these battles for years. More recently, you got Phil Brumley and Paul Polidoro going to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they were fighting the Stratton, Ohio case where they won the right to preach without having to go and purchase a license to preach in Stratton, Ohio, or anywhere. So that's an understandable result. You know, and they make a big deal about how they won that case. And they also won all those flag salute cases. And that's really something that they should have won for freedom of speech, the very same freedom of speech that they're denying their own members or their own apostates who speak out against their religion. But up in Canada, the same thing was going on with all those Supreme Court cases. You know, I think Hayden Covington here in the U.S. was the most famous Watchtower lawyer in the history of Watchtower, because he was close friends with Rutherford for a long time. And, you know, he fought all those Supreme Court cases virtually single-handedly. He was also the lawyer for Muhammad Ali when Ali was going to go to, you know, he was a conscientious objector and said, I don't want to go to Vietnam. And, you know, this brother, this former elder and lawyer, Hayden Covington, defended Ali. He was one of his many attorneys. He ultimately got disfellowshipped and reinstated for alcoholism. But up in Canada, the Glenn Howe law firm was fighting these same cases, World War II and onward. So Glenn Howe became very famous. And so there's this law firm up there that's embedded within the Toronto Bethel. It's actually part of it. And so Shane Brady is part of that bunch of Canadian, you know, that long line of Canadian attorneys that work for the Glenn Howe law firm. It just makes me think, Lloyd, that the lawyers are really propping up this organization.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. They even make a point in the interview of at that stage how much traveling he's doing. Mark Sanderson asks the question, what are the challenges? And he says, oh, the stress of, you know, lawsuits are always stressful. Also lots of traveling. And it was making the point that he travels with his wife, Yolanda. And at that point, he'd been traveling to places like Kazakhstan and that sort of thing. And it was a challenge for him to pop up in these countries. And in many cases, the lawsuits would be in a completely different language. So that would also be a challenge. But obviously, since that interview, he's been, and the reason why I mention him is because, of course, he's representing the organization at ICSA. He's also popped up in the Netherlands to defend or to try and quash the Utrecht University report.
Yeah, right.
He's like a bad smell. He pops up all over the place, doesn't he?
They complain about not having enough money, right? And they want donations, but they're not transparent about spending any money on legal fees and travel expenses and such.
And I think it's interesting that a lot of these guys that are fighting these battles are homegrown lawyers. And I'm not 100% sure about Shane Brady, but we know that Phil Brumley is a homegrown. They sent him to law school. So you've got men that don't really have a passion for the law. They have a passion for the organization and they want to defend the organization, but they don't live and breathe the law the way that these real attorneys live and breathe the law. The same is true in Australia, where you have the embarrassing testimony of Vincent Toole.
Their task is to skew the law in favor of what the organization wants, isn't it, really?
They feel that they're using the law, and their whole basis, really, it's the American Constitution that forms the basis for their ability to fight these battles. That's why whenever they've gone to the U.S. Supreme Court, you can't go to the U.S. Supreme Court unless there's a constitutional issue. Okay. Now, you know, like in the U.S., Donald Trump's been sued, and then just 2 days ago, I think it was, that they released the findings of they're trying to go after Trump's taxes. And it became a constitutional issue. It went to the Supreme Court, and I'm not going to get into that's a whole different story. But the point is that it has to be a constitutional issue for it to reach the U.S. Supreme Court. So the cases that Watchtower should have won, they did win, and we don't really have too much of an objection to that. Their, freedom to express their faith without having to go and buy a permit, that's not a, big deal. But when it comes to child abuse cases, remember, in the JW versus Watchtower case that was lost by Watchtower in California, they appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court and said, oh, constitutional issues here. And they issued a writ of certiorari, which means they're appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they lost because the U.S. Supreme Court said, no, we're kicking this back down to the district court in California and the appellate court. And in that case, Watchtower, and this happened just this year, they had to write a check for close to $6 million for that particular case. Just one
dedicated funds.
$6 million, right? They paid all, because this case had been going on for years, so they had to pay a large amount because it was a $4 million judgment, but they ended up having to pay like 1.5 or 6 million extra dollars because they dragged it out so long that it ultimately went to their appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Meanwhile, they had to pay all this money. And I mentioned on the show yesterday that I can't even talk about some of the stuff that's going on right now, other than to say that Watchtower is writing checks. And this is when we get into the subject of transparency. That, look, Watchtower, they pretend to be, I don't know, I didn't mention this on the show yesterday, but I think I mentioned it in our group chat that something happened with Dennis Christensen. He's been jailed and he was about to get out early. He's the Danish guy in Russia. He's a Danish elder.
And they prematurely praised Jehovah for that.
So, right. And, but they also falsely reported something which they actually issued a correction of. So a week or two ago, they reported that Dennis Christensen was, he was about to be released, which is correct. He had a 6-year sentence. They were going to release him early after 3 years. And he was just about to be released when the prosecutor's office denied that and issued new charges against him. And Watchtower reported that he was placed in a, I forget the acronym, but he was placed in a very bad detention cell where they send criminals, it was a very bad section. I'd have to pull it up. It's on JW.org. But like just 2 days ago, they issued a correction of that and said, oh, well, we had it wrong. It wasn't that detention cell, but it was in the same building as that bad detention cell. So that one little thing they were transparent about, but they're not transparent about anything that matters, like what they're paying for these child abuse cases. And that's our whole point of what we do, is to make these things transparent so that witnesses have an opportunity to see whether or not they are in agreement with the organization that they have committed their lives to and been baptized into. Transparency is really, really important.
And that is my thing of what pushed me over the edge to leave, was the transparency, like going back and saying, well, wait a minute, they stopped charging money for the publications, not because this was Jehovah's direction, but because there was going to be taxes involved. And in 2014, they released the God's Kingdom book. And at that convention, it talks about what your donations are used for. And it talks about the kingdom preaching and the building and supporting traveling overseers. Nowhere does it talk about legal fees, and not even things such as defending, their constitutional rights to preach. They just completely avoid talking about spending any money on lawyers and legal fees at all. And, that always bothered me. So it's like, let's not talk about it at all, so you can't research anything. And then they, of course, every year release their article looking for money. And again, they just, that's one that always gets me, is the transparency.
Indeed. Thank you to Leisha Fox for your very kind super chat and for your message. And also we've had a message through. Well, John Cypress says, Watchtower has no accountability to anyone. Governing body answers to no one. This sounds like the definition of dictatorship. And mind control really sucks. Says, makes me worry more and more when I see Watchtower going after activists. I'd be interested to know what you think, Mark and Kimmy, about this. Have you ever at any point thought this could be actually really damaging or dangerous to get involved in activism against the organization, because they could, if they wanted to, just go all out and ruin us? Has that thought ever crossed your mind?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially when we became transparent in that Atlantic article. I always joke with Mark, like, are we going to lose our house? But, you know.
Well, it's scary what happened.
Yeah.
Scary what happened in Switzerland because, you know, criminal charges against someone, a blogger who called them a cult and said that the blood policy was damaging and other things. I mean, really? I mean, that stands in stark opposition to freedom of speech that we enjoy here in this country. And, you know, I said this yesterday in our program that, you know, we haven't been sued at JWsurvey. We are offering our opinion of these various court cases and issues and the blood policy and the child abuse. The only thing they attempted to come after us for was, you know, and anywhere we come close to the copyright issue, like we can't publish their books or videos. And even you, Lloyd, have been very careful in the way that you offer commentary, fair use commentary.
I must say, I panicked a little bit. Well, not a little bit. It was concerning when I got my cease and desist letter through. I actually, by the way, need to dig that out. It somehow got lost amongst bundles of paperwork, but I want to get the original signed letter that I got through and frame it.
I was going to say you should frame it.
Because obviously that's the one time the Watchtower's actually written to me directly and told me to stop what I'm doing. They wanted me to take down the Pillowgate rebuttals, to which I replied, well, what you're doing is you're telling me to not criticize you because I'm allowed to show your material and then comment on it. I have to show your material in this case in order for people to even believe it, because if I were to just describe it, no one would believe me. So, and they never replied, but they were obviously threatening legal action. And, you know, when you have a young family, you don't take that stuff lightly, you know. No. But I suppose I can afford at this point in my activism career to not be overconfident, but at least know that there are many, many people supporting me. I mean, we're at the point where there's hundreds of patrons and, you know, there's a large YouTube audience. So it's one of those things where if Watchtower did decide to come after me, they know that I wouldn't be short of support. And they also know that I'm in a stronger position with each passing year to blow the horn and let everyone know what's happening. So, yeah.
And on the other side of that, you have the Dark Spilver case, which is anonymous commentary. And we know that Watchtower went after Dark Spilver because that individual was not in the United States. He had published a couple of real simple documents that, you know, they weren't exactly damaging. They were just they created transparency about the organization. One of them was just the back page of an Awake magazine that talked about, we want donations. It was an entire back page of the Awake. And so they went after Dark Spilver and they sent Paul Polidoro like 2 or 3 times. At least he's on a plane to the West Coast and he's arguing before a California judge because this happened in, this was
But that was more a case of them intimidating a faded informant. It's different mechanics, isn't it? When it's someone who's already outed themselves. Like
that's my point, right?
Yeah.
But Dark Spilver won that. At least won the right for them not to get to his identity. So if you're going to give advice to people, you know, that are afraid, you know, at least they know that they should have a degree of anonymity. And, you know, for any that want to go, you know, look at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, I recommend it's EFF.org. They're a great organization that protects free speech, and they defended Dark Spilver, even though they never met him. You know, I mean, they know who he is, but no one else knows who he is or she is. And so EFF is really important in that they support the rights of anonymous free speech and free speech in general. And that's something that is really damaging to the organization because it helps people to see the transparency about Watchtower. And as you like to say, Lloyd, that allows people to vote with their feet by walking out of the organization if they don't like what they see.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you to psychologist Rachel for your very kind super chat. You all would have a super donation spree if Watchtower would come after any of you plus pro bono attorney defense, undoubtedly. Yeah, I've even had people suggest, why don't you start putting together a war chest now? And to be honest, I just don't like the idea of paying lawyers unless I have to.
Mm-hmm.
So when the call needs to go out, it will go out, but not a moment sooner, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Let's finish, shall we, with some sophistication and culture brought to you in the form of poetry in Sasha's absence, where we have a limerick prepared by Kimmy.
It's Saturday. Let's sing along with Arthur as he changes the song. His lyrics may trigger as his fan base grows bigger. On his ride, let's follow along.
Excellent. Very timely as well.
Should have been at the beginning of the show before he sang his song.
His fan base is growing bigger, isn't it?
Right?
He's become quite a phenomenon.
He needs his own merch.
He does.
Yeah, sing along with Arthur. Probably people would buy that.
He looks a bit distracted at the moment.
He's busy talking to his fans.
No, I'm looking for a short poem I posted on Jason Wynn's Twitter account as a comment to.
He's trying to get in on the poetry.
Trying to get into the poetry that you said no to.
Arthur, maybe in the next show, which, as I said earlier, will be a week from now, the next Saturday. Next Saturday will be the next Last Days live stream because I have my wedding anniversary.
Yes, I remember. Happy anniversary to you and Deanna.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, happy anniversary.
And happy anniversary. Ours is next month.
We're going to risk it with another escape to the coast. So,
nice.
Yeah, we shall see what happens. But viewers, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I've certainly enjoyed the segments and the quiz and the poetry, and Arthur's singing as well has been very entertaining. We look forward to seeing you on the next show a week from now. Until then, stay safe, stay positive, and we'll see you in the next show. Take care.
Bye.
Bye,
See you guys.
Bye.